And I'll introduce Tom Warnecke, who is the Deputy General Secretary of the European Association for Psychotherapy. And Tom is going to speak to us on a small light in a dark room. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for your introduction. And thank you, Anastasia. I mean, I'm also going back into history through in a different way, but I'd like to start with to say that I link my passion for ethical questions and ethical paradigms and to my growing up in post-war Germany and post-war Italy. And one of my grandparents was in the resistance against Hitler, and the other one was in a small way an active member of the Nazi Party. And unfortunately for me, for my psyche, the grandparent who was the active member of the Nazi Party was also my nicest grandparent. And that really screwed me over. I mean, it's been an ongoing theme for many, many years for me. So it's very, it's inevitably incredibly complex. And unfortunately, there are no easy answers. So that said, I'd like to come back to what I want to share with you, which is actually, it starts with a story. And I apologize to the translators because this is not in the text that I had sent ahead. The small light in the dark room first came up as an association. I think it was actually in a meeting that we had in preparation for this event today, back in December, or close to it, possibly during the meeting. And I noticed it, I knew where it was from. I first think I heard it or read it in a book, or it was the movie perhaps, The Freedom Writers, where an actress plays Mies Giep, whom I will talk about. And then this small light in the dark room stayed with me. So after a week, I kind of thought, maybe this is really beginning for me maybe this gives me the frame to what I want to speak about today. So some of you may recognize this. It is a line by Mies Giep, said to be by Mies Giep. She is a woman who helped to hide 8 Jewish people, including Anne Frank, whom everybody will have heard of, and her family in Amsterdam from 6 July until 1942 until 4th August 1944. So I'm a researcher as well as a psychotherapist, so I wondered whether she actually said that, and I began to search. And I read articles, I watched videos, and my presentation today began to grow and develop in this search I did. And I was particularly interested in Mies Giep's motivation and the motivations of others like her, which emerged as a central focus. So the story that unfolded in this process makes sense to me, and I hope it will resonate with you. So why Mies Giep, you may ask? Let me actually go to the screen share now. Oops, sorry, it's a little bit complicated. Share, and so here we are. So this is the house, by the way, where Mies Giep and others like her, it was a small group, were hiding Anne Frank and her family. So why Mies Giep, you may ask? First of all, it was her story that moved me and inspired my contribution today. The second reason is that we know more about her than we know about most of the thousands or perhaps tens of thousands of ordinary people who have acted similarly to her in comparable situations. Mies Giep was an ordinary young woman in her 30s, an accountant and secretary who decided to break the law and risk arrest, imprisonment, or worse when she participated in hiding 8 Jewish people for just over 2 years. I think it's important that we consider both the context, the circumstances, as well as the motivations in order to better understand, hopefully, how acting ethically in extreme or extraordinary situations is framed. But hiding Jewish refugees has not been the only historical circumstances that prompted people to break the law by acting ethically. I will only include one more historic example here today, but there are quite a few others. So where is the right? Starting from about 1810 until the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861, an estimated 100,000 escaped slaves used the so-called Underground Railroad to escape slavery. There was not actually any railway, but the name was part of a secret code used for a network of safe houses, helpers, and secret routes that reached from the southern federal US states to the northern US states where slavery was illegal. These are the ones in blue in this graphic, and all the way to Canada. Similarly to the situation for Jewish refugees in Hitler's Germany and in German-occupied territories, it was illegal to hide, to help any escaped slaves, even in the anti-slavery federal US states. The 1793 Fugitive Slave Act and its more draconian 1850 follow-up required everybody in the northern slavery-free states to help slave owners recapture their slaves. A secret network capable to assist an estimated 100,000 people would have involved thousands of people like Harriet Tubman, whom this is a book about her, who became a historic figure similarly to Mies Giep. Inevitably, most people involved in the Underground Railroad remained hidden in the shadows by the nature of their secret ethical undertaking, just like the vast majority of 20th century Europeans hiding or supporting Jewish refugees. On first sight, the terror years of Hitler's Third Reich and the US slavery conflict during the first half of the 19th century have little in common. But a closer look reveals a critical commonality. This is the context I was talking about. Both represented extraordinary situations characterized by radically divergent values and alternative realities created by warped perceptions such as supremacist beliefs, for example. The white supremacist beliefs in the southern US states and the supposed supremacy of Hitler's fictional Aryan race. On both occasions, and of course others like them in history, thousands of ordinary people like Mies Giep or Harriet Tubman followed their ethical convictions, broke the law, and risked imprisonment or worse as very real potential consequences. In fact, Mies Giep went even further when she attempted to bribe the soldiers who came to arrest the Jewish refugees in her care. She almost got arrested for this, but Mies Giep was actually not Dutch. She was actually Austrian. She had been sent from Austria as a child to Holland, to the Netherlands, to escape the poverty and the deprivation there. So one of the soldiers recognized her Austrian accent and convinced the others to not arrest her. So today we are seeing similar situations. Putin's brutal military invasion of Ukraine and the terror unleashed on the civil population since 2014, and at a much increased scale for the last 12 months, created once again a situation characterized by radically divergent values and warped perceptions. In this case, Putin's alternative reality is fueled by some imaginary Russian supremacy and associated sense of entitlement for Putin and others to attack and terrorize a neighboring population. And I'm wondering about indications. Let me actually slowly, I forgot the slide. So this is actually some people here in the Underground Railway. Oh yes, I also forgot to mention the Underground Railway. The name kind of is derived from a railroad where the helpers were called conductors, the safe houses were called stations, and so on. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that. I think that's relevant, of course. So, but I'm wondering, is there also something happening today? Is there also something happening today that is perhaps comparable, given that there is a comparable context between Hitler's Third Reich and terror years and the American slavery conflict and what is happening today in Ukraine and the Ukraine-occupied territories and in Russia, and perhaps nearby too. So I found a report back in January this was in The Guardian, which is an international, well-respected newspaper. So they tend to, either say we couldn't verify this, or they have been able to verify it. So in March 2022, 16-year-old David had boarded a bus from Mariupol to, I apologize if I don't pronounce the city's Ukrainian names quite right. I don't speak Ukrainian, sadly. Planning to escape to Kiev via Belarus. But in Russia, they took away his passport and put him in a children's home. 8 months later, David arrived in Kiev. His escape was organized by Ukrainian supporters, but required aid from the secret network of Russian volunteers, operating in the shadows to help Ukrainians stuck in Russia to leave or escape. So this, to my mind, sounds quite similarly, and it's obviously secret, and it's obviously not, in the light, just like me, Peace and Harriet Tubman were not in the light and had to hide and had to keep this secret. But it appears that there are some similarities happening today. So, which brings me back to the title of my talk today. I was unable to find a reference for the small light in the dark room. I mean, it's definitely that the actress who plays Miesgiep in this Freedom Writers movie used that line, but I have not been able to confirm that this was something said by Miesgiep. But I found something she did say that was even more relevant to our symposium today, in particular for the question of her motivation. And here she is. In that dark time of the war, we did not stand on the sidelines, but extended our hands to help others, risking our own lives. We could not have done more. So I heard her say this on a video of a recording of the presentation she gave. So, which takes me, to the two questions in my mind today. What motivates people to act ethically in spite of personal risk this involves? And secondly, what can we do as psychotherapists or as supervisors to support those people who do? What makes us act ethically? Belief systems, values, inspirations such as me, Peace, or Harriet Tubman? What motivates each of us here today to want to act ethically? This is not just a question for situations like, Holland in 1942 or the US during the slavery conflict. Years ago, I discovered that in Britain, under British law, if a court orders me to disclose confidential information from a client or patient, I'm required to do so. And if not, the judge can put me in jail. So that got me thinking, would I be prepared to go to jail if I considered that, disclosing this confidential information would be harmful to my client or patient? Now, I will not know the final answer until this, I hope, never happens. But I'm just saying these sort of questions are actually around us in so many situations. So I think they're very relevant, when we talk about ethical questions in extreme situations. So here is this, what would motivate you? I just want you, I'm going to pause for a minute, and I want you to just take a moment to reflect on what motivates you, each of you, to act ethically, even when this requires taking a personal risk, such as imprisonment or even worse. So just take a minute now. As part of my journey of my presentation today, I began to consider psychological theory that might give some insight into such motivations. And that got me to return to Abraham Maslow, who late in his life, it was only the last 2-3 years before his untimely early passing, he began to argue that meta values create psychological spaces that facilitate motivation beyond needs or ego-driven motivation. He linked meta values to phenomenal experiences that that with deeply personal meaning that bridge personal and collectively shared dimensions. Maslow thought that self-actualized people would be motivated by meta-values. But self-actualization, to my mind, does not appear a requirement for people like Miep Gies or Harriet Tubman in order to, be motivated to act ethically. I mean, both were not particularly educated. Yeah, both did not have, philosophical, or appear particularly self-actualized. They were quite young. They were fiery. They certainly felt this was the right thing to do, as Miep Gies says. So, but this caveat does not take away, to my mind, from the significance of Maslow's meta-value conception. Acting ethically is concerned with entities outside of ourselves and fueled by concerns for that other, that otherness. Motivation is therefore unlikely to be ego or need-driven, since it's concerned for the outside, for something external to me, whether that's the planet, people, animals. So it indeed most likely informed by personal meaning. And Maslow's recognition that phenomenal experiences, sensory experiences, Alexander spoke about these earlier today, that bridge personal and collectively shared dimensions appear the most likely source for deeply personal meanings that are potent enough to motivate ethical actions such as Miep Gies. Sadly, Maslow's motivational psychology research project, there were others involved at the time, did not continue after his untimely passing. I'm hoping someone will pick this up and continue. My second question, what can psychotherapists and supervisors do to support people who take risks acting ethically, is an inquiry which I hope we'll be able to find more answers for together today. We might expect that there might be quite different considerations reflecting on therapists' geographic location. I've been told that we have not had many registrations or any for this symposium from Russian colleagues, but who knows, maybe they have found their way anyway. So let me share the two ideas that I've come up with personally. And this is just the start, okay? This is not answers. This is just more to kind of engage you to get thinking about this and evolve, take it from there. So my first thing I can do is to consider what personal risks we individually are prepared to take to support clients and supervisees involved in ethical but illegal activities. And my second idea is that utilizing code words such as Underground Railroad might actually lead the way. For example, if hiding or supporting refugees was illegal in Britain, which is quite a possibility with the current government at some stage, it's not happening now, I might include code words on my website, perhaps within unrelated sentences, that could signal to clients or supervisees they would be welcome to speak about such activities without fear that I might, call it from the police, to denunciate them. So this is sort of my thinking so far, and I really hope we can add further ideas later today in small groups and plenary discussions. I'm not sure if there are any questions. I'd also like to say, as an ending, that I was really moved when I heard just how many people signed up for today's events, and hopefully all of you found their way onto this platform. I have spoken at other ethical symposiums. I have attended quite a few. I have never seen this high number on anything to do with ethical considerations. So it's really moving because it's something I feel very passionate about. And it's really moving I can't see you, unfortunately, on Zoom, but it's very moving to know you're all out there. So thank you for coming today. I don't know if you have time for questions, Pat, or if there is anything.
Thank you, Tom. I think we perhaps won't take questions now. We'll take them into the discussion rooms. We'll take them into the round table this afternoon. So may I thank you, my dear Tom.
Thank you.
You've raised deep and powerful questions, and all the presentations, we're going to the heart of the matter, and the stories that you have told take us to the heart of the matter. And it's very beautiful when you say about acting ethically, that it is what it is what states our humanity. It is what honors our humanity, and it is what makes us alive. And I think these are really true statements and speak to those of us in Ukraine today and those of us elsewhere in Europe today, speaks to everyone. So thank you so much. And there are so many questions. I'm sure that that your presentation will come back with questions and comments in the afternoon.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah.